podcast. I think we have a really important show today. I brought together a few of my best minds in the community for like a community meeting. I have with me Lauda Leone or Sovereign Key. I have with me Nathan Ciszek from the Voice of Orion project, and I also have with me in the background is Olivia James. And Today we're going to be talking about a lot of dissension that's been going on in the community, a project that Olivia found out about, and Lauda and Nate's the topics they want to cover too. Oh shit, sorry, my thing's caught talking over itself. Sorry. Oh shit. Is it gonna stop? Oh my god. Well, it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be. It won't close out. Okay.
Rob's altar.
It wouldn't be right if there wasn't some kind of interference, right? But anyway,
Right.
thanks everybody for joining me. How is everybody doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, so Olivia, did you want to start off with telling Nate and Lauda? I think you already told Nate, but but I don't think Lauda knows yet about what you found out about, like, kind of what's going on with like the dissension in the community, and then the project you found out about, and then all this stuff that you found out, if you could.
Okay. I guess I think it was about a month ago. I worked closely with Misha Johnston. We did some hypnotic regression work. And during that particular session, we kind of went pretty far, very far. And in terms, when I say very far, I mean going very deep and being able to bilocate and kind of travel to these places. And what I was being shown is, or what I saw. Sometimes I don't have permission to see these things, and sometimes I'm still going. So I'm not quite sure how that worked, but I saw that there's a new project called Project Oblivion, and I was able to see some of the things that some of the people on the list, and they have this specific list of people that they want to stop talking. And what they're trying to do with this particular project is to finally squash the disclosure movement, and pretty much obliterate it, like no more. So there was all different types of people on the list, various, and I noticed that there was different podcasters on there, because the casters are giving the people such an amazing platform to get the information out, that they're going to find themselves targeted themselves. So it looked like people were, and I was seeing it in like flashes sometimes of, maybe people, they were trying to show me that people are going to be targeted by showing me that they were getting grabbed and held down, things like that. So the energy from it was pretty nefarious, pretty negative. Like, so I know people that aren't used to being targeted are now going to be targeted, and there's going to be a lot. What they're trying to do this. I don't feel like they can accomplish what they want to do, but I think it's better to be aware that it's not just all of us, arguing and fighting, things like that. There's a lot of outside influence to kind of, close out this chapter of us trying to bring our voices forward.
Do you have any recollection of what some of these people are, or who they are that were on the list that you saw?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, are any of them any names you would want to mention?
No, I probably would mention them to them privately.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be, I don't say this for people to be thinking that I'm trying to incite fear anybody.
Yeah.
But I think it's better to be aware and notice, rather than just sit and say, oh, everything's going to be fine, everything's light and love and light, and that's going to cure everything. That's why I said I should probably say something. Actually, I'm writing about it in my second book, so a lot more information will be in the second book too.
Yeah, I agree. It's always better to know.
Because I was thinking, if we bring it forward, then maybe it stops it. I feel like a lot of times, like, if I think our voices have a lot more power than like we give them credit for. Like, like, it doesn't seem like we have big platforms, but when we get the word out there, maybe other podcasts start to pick up stuff that we're covering, and then maybe it causes like an echo chamber. Like, and
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I think so. When I'm under regression, one of my guides is pretty much my dead father. He's become something of a guide to me when I travel some of these realms, and I go as far as I can. And when he came through, he told me doing this and you know, writing about it and telling people about this, he said, I chose a really hard road. And he said that everything's going to be difficult for me from now on, and pretty much for all of us. But that doesn't mean to stop. He never said stop. He said keep going out there and doing it, because that's how we're going to change the world, is by continuing to tell the stories and give the information that we have. If we stop now, if all of us stop and just keep fighting, it's over. So we have to just keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, it is over.
Absolutely.
We really got to get on this, and we have to unify a lot more than what we've actually done. Because when I came into this community, it was pretty fragmented, and you know, the new age was very, very I would say prevalent in it, and it's a distraction as part of the programming. And that's where the love bites come in. That's where the handlers come in, and all the other nonsense that we have to deal with. So that's going on in a clandestine way underneath the surface, and we're all dealing with that every day. That's the big threat. That's why it's hard for us to even create a forum, any kind of communities, because as soon as we get together, they start, and it's immediate. And a lot of the problems are already engineered in advance before we even get together. So people just bring the baggage with them, and then it just festers like a cancer from there throughout the forum. And then people have these issues. They split up. People lose friends, and some completely, you know, drop out of the community altogether and isolate themselves. That's just some of the things that are happening. There's also actual threats by agents. There's the threats that they give you to, you know, through the voice to skull stuff. I've had all of that just recently.
Yeah,
and including media, right? Like you'll get weird things coming up through media and the television directed to you. So yeah, they can use a lot of different ways of doing it.
Well, you know, something that happened to me a lot of is the feds or some obsessed fan downloaded my YouTube videos and loaded them up to another platform that I stopped using, and did a great job of it. 2 of my podcasts are up there, and I got an email saying your upload was successful. And I went and I looked, and there's like, not just, you know, the one I just uploaded like 12 hours before is now on this other platform, but the one I did 2 weeks prior is up there too. They cut and pasted all the, you know, descriptions and links. They did a good job. So I have a personal assistant now paid for by my tax dollars. I'm getting more for my tax money. Oh, which reminds me, by the way, just to be funny, the elections are coming, so we're all going to be saved. And this is my instructions on how to fill out my ballot. So if I fill it out wrong, it's not a problem, because they'll fill it out for me.
I do 100% believe that we cannot stop, and we should not stop. And if anything, it should be the very opposite, because they know how this mechanical, magical realm works, and that's why they need consensus, and why they psyop everything, so that they can make and seduce people into believing whatever. A lot of it is hypnosis. And it takes a few primes to really like affect, like a domino effect, the complete consciousness stream, right? So then you get a movement, then you get people that start opening their eyes, and they're able to perceive outside of the spell. So yeah, no, we should never stop.
But what I was going to say is they're finding like coordinated ways to like attack us. Like I'll just give an example. Like at the time, Nate, when you were having issues with whatever happened with you, and I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I'll just, you know, like I'll tell what happened with me. Like I had a Discord group, and it was weird because like it was like, you know, it was like all the people that are like really close that like watch my podcast. Like, you know, it's like my Telegram group, but it was better because it was like, you know, it was like, I don't know, we were all like family in there, and like it was just like really like it was a great thing. And then like a couple bad actors got in there, and it just got completely dismantled. Like nobody goes in my Discord group anymore. Like it's crazy. We had like 150 members, you know what I mean? And like like nobody goes in there anymore. And I have to think that that was part of the targeting. Like, you know what I mean? And that's just one of the things that was done to me amongst many things that I could name. But like, it was just like, it hits you out of nowhere. It was like, well, I guess that's done now. And I guess I got to regroup and just try to start over again. And, like, what do? You know what I mean? Like, and do you guys think that they're going to be hitting us in all different kinds of ways like that?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. They already are. They already are actually, but it was the month of December that I noticed that the physical attacks really ramped up. I got really sick. I almost lost my house. I couldn't I couldn't earn any money. I couldn't really do anything. I was that sick. And they also affect your the way you think, because I mean, I was even getting that stuff where they make you fall asleep, where suddenly you're extremely exhausted and you just start going out. And I have a way to stop that, but if they affect the way you're thinking and they put you off guard, they'll still get you sometimes. And that was happening to me. I had pain all over my body, extreme levels of nerve pain, chest pains, you name it. I had it all. I had the full, viral issue with the not the stabinations, but the other thing, the V that we still can't talk about that everybody else can, because if we do, they put a strike on us.
We can't, but they can.
Right. And they can tell you all about it, but we can't. And that really says a lot, because they still use that. And they use other things like the election, if you bring that up. So that's why I just brought it up in a way that is palatable. If I don't fill out my ballot right, they'll correct my mistakes. And good thing for that, because we need fact checkers and error fixers. Get things right. Right. So, but yeah, this is an orchestrated effort to take us all down. And intuitively, and it also came from altars that I thought were my higher self, was that this is a purge. And it started around December for a lot of us. It may have started before that and likely was engineered, leading up to it. But that's when it really started to hit. And I talked to people in France. I talked to people all over the world every so often. And every chance I get, I ask people who talk to even more people than me. And they're all saying the same thing. Right around December is when things started to really get really nasty for a lot of us.
Same.
Others aren't getting hit as much.
I had a hard December too.
Yeah, there you go. And for me, it just didn't let up until recently. And that's part of the purge. They need to get us out of the way. And I also got intuitively too that it wasn't just us. They're purging the whole system. They're getting rid of political activists. They're getting rid of everybody that's a problem for what they're building. And with us, the more we wake up, the more the altars wake up in the programs, which is something I wasn't even aware of how that worked. So they've got to stop us from waking up. And if they put the chips in us, you can kiss this awakening goodbye, because they'll have a secondary means of shutting it down. And I actually had that conversation with an altar. I said, if they kill me and we don't get out of here and we're recycled, the chances of us doing this again are very small. And he said, I think you're right.
Was that your higher self, Nate? You think that said that?
No, because the higher self was a deception. I had multiple alters coming through with different personalities that were me. Some were more psychopathic, some were more empathetic. There's male and female. There's a whole bunch of them. And they were taking turns with me. And I think what happened like almost 2 years ago, when I burnt off those cords, I think that was an altar that was breaking out of the old mind control, and they had to get her rein back in, because that was a female voice coming through. And then after that, it was a male voice, and then a voice that I couldn't distinguish, but it sounded male, and then it just went from there. And so when I'm getting things from my higher self, it was actually multiple altars that would come and go that were working for the programs, some of whom have apologized, but I started to get, to make the connection once I tore the facade down that they had made, that deception I was dealing with, where I was being programmed with things, especially the angelic programming too. They give you the angelic identity programming stuff that happened immediately right afterward. You're an avenging archangel, this, that, and the other, but there's reality to this. And the reality is I'm dealing with the United States military much more than I am with extraterrestrials or angels or any of this stuff. And it really strikes you when you get a serious threat and you actually sit down with somebody that doesn't talk like Zeus or Metatron or any of these other entities, and they sit down and it's a person and they play good cop with you, and the other side of it where they're threatening you. I mean, in the same conversation, I get soft talk and I get nasty threats. And it's like the mobster movies, but it's an interrogation. It's the US military. They identified themselves. And it made it quite clear to me, because it was like, if you keep seeing through our deceptions, then we're just going to level with you and we're going to show you who we are. And we own you, is what they said. You don't have a choice. You do have a choice. You can comply and your life will be easier. And they promised me some things. The next life, I won't be going through this. But they're going to use me the exact same way. It's just they're going to give me favorable living conditions, provided I stop resisting. That's all they wanted. They said I didn't have a choice. Well, if they've got to ask me to stop resisting, then I do have a choice. I have a choice to break free if they kill me, and I have a choice to resist them and help this community and everybody in it do the same thing and lead as an example.
Can I say something about altars really quick that I've recently discovered?
Sure.
Yeah.
When I'm doing these sessions, I've noticed, well, I've learned that for a long time, I thought my altars were kind of against me and more working for other programs. But in the end, when it came down to it, they betrayed their original programming themselves to side with me and do what I say. So I think a lot of assets need to know that we have a lot more control over these altars than they let us believe. So that's very important, because when I did have my altars that were in control, I felt like I didn't even know who I was, because it was shifting so much and constantly, and I couldn't get a handle on who I was. So now that my altars are in retirement, they went to sleep for me. They agreed, all the very front altars, to go to sleep and give me a break. They were there if I need them, because basically they said they're there to keep me alive, nobody else. The altars created to me is for my survival. So I think any asset need to be aware that, we're a lot more in control than they led us to believe. I think that's part of the program, to make us think that we can't control what's happening in our own minds. And let me tell you, your mind is very powerful. You can reach, very far depths within your own mind, and to get a handle on all of this. And that's another way they control us.
She's absolutely right. That's exactly what I've experienced just in the past couple of weeks. I went from being on the other side of this, seeing it from a different perspective and thinking I was free and clear, to being in a panic and being freaked out because I realized that I wasn't. And then I made some progress in making those connections and realized that, they were forced to do what they're doing. And despite their problems, they all want to go home. That's what they told me. So I did get that.
How did you guys know, like, what happened for you to become aware that you had altars, both of you?
I'll let Olivia go first. So I got to think about it, because it's still kind of going on in my, I'm still sorting this out.
Actually, the reason why I started my whole journey is because one of my altars, I had the sex addiction issues. So when I started doing hypnosis, it was specifically for that issue. I didn't know a lot of what was going on in my own body and my own mind. So when I was able to really change my state and consciousness, I had no idea that I could go as far as I went. I went so far. I passed so far that it's really hard to explain when you can see the inside of your own mind and you can see the real matrix. Is, when people talk about the matrix, but the matrix was inside my own mind, and it's in every individual's mind. When we're thinking about it, it's inside your mind. It's not anything outside of you. So when I got past that, everything that was inside me was speaking, and it just came alive. All of these people came alive, and they were able to talk through me, talk about their own lives, their own worlds. Some of these altars are so powerful that they've actually created their own dimension inside your own mind, and it's real. It's not a false thing, because when you think about it, you think, yeah, it's something in my mind. No, your mind is a world inside itself. So there's so much inside you already. So when I was able to see past that, I was able to talk to all my alters, you know, talk to past lives, travel to see the past lives, traveling to where the altars are, that kind of thing. So that's how I became aware of it. It is really, it wasn't even looking for disclosure. It was looking to give myself some type of therapeutic help in the beginning. And this was some years ago. So that's kind of how it led me down that path. And it just kept going and going. And the memories were coming up. I was having a lot of V2K. I was having a lot of memories that where I didn't see myself as this type of person. Like, I don't know how I could be what I was seeing in my own mind, because that wasn't what I was. I couldn't see myself being, you know, aggressive or very even able to do the things that they had me do. I just didn't know that I had any type of abilities or anything. I mean, yes, I've had a very strange life and a lot of paranormal things, that kind of thing, but I would have never expected it to be humans that have started all this. And you know, the humans were the ones that created this for us.
And you said you had a lot of paranormal activity as well?
Yes.
Because I usually find that goes hand in hand.
I think my whole life I was afraid of what I considered like demons, dark entities, and I would always see things and hear things, and I felt like they were always constantly searching for me, trying to and to find out they really were searching for me. They were trying to talk to me, and I'm not afraid of them anymore. They were trying to talk to me because they considered me somewhat of a kindred soul to them, because I used to be a jinn in a past life. So I'm somewhat of a similar frequency to them. So what I found out in speaking with them, it's been mind-blowing to hear some of the things they say, and some of the, you know, just our ideas of what we think they are so far from what I've experienced of these individuals and these, you know, different beings. It's just been really amazing.
Also, Olivia, I know your case a little bit because me and you have done like 3 shows together. Like I know you've talked about when you were in the programs, I don't know if Nate and Lauda know this about you. They would kind of like leash you out while you were in the programs, where you would go to like a rich person's house because you were a host, right? And you could kind of mesh with the entity, where the entity would take over your body, and the rich people would want to like talk to the entity or have sex with the entity or do like weird stuff.
Yes. Yeah, they would. Correct? That was through Monarch Solutions. Actually, they have a whole catalog for occult services like that. And that was one of the things they would have. Some of these families, they've been doing this for a lot of years, like almost 500 years. One of the families I know, they started this in the 1500s. They were able to gain what they call a generational daemon. That's what they call it. And it means that they think that this entity, they carry it. Each generation carries this tradition of kind of staying with this entity, because they feel like he gives them strength, he gives them power. But the entity himself told me he doesn't do anything. He's there for the worship and the reverence and the, you know, the offerings they provide. He's not there for anything else. And he says that they're, you know, pretty much full of crap, because they think this in their mind. He said that's what keeps them there. He said he's just there for the goods, you know, whatever is coming forth for worship. But there really is nothing keeping them on top except for themselves. And he said it's just because they were born into wealth, they stay wealthy, for, you know. But I always thought that was interesting, that they have you go to the house. For me, they would treat me very well, but because they wanted me to go into like a very deep trance. And when I can go into that deep trance, that's when I can do the hosting. And the word hosting that was taught to me by an entity. He said that's what I do. He said that's what it's called, hosting. So I allow the entity to take over my body, and then he can take over my body, and then I can even go inside his body or her body, whoever it is. I can go inside their body too and see inside their mind. And what I thought was interesting, out of all the different beings that I've let speak through me, I'm Jesus, Mary, you know, Source, and demons and angel, everything, and a lot of the frequencies feel similar. It doesn't feel, I never felt it to be, when a dark entity is inside me, nothing lingers in me. It's my ability. I don't get afraid. Nothing lingers in me. I'm not sad. I'm not angry. Afterwards, no ill will is afterwards. There's no ill intentions. And I feel completely fine after. And they feel similar. So I think that's something that would intrigue people to know, that both types, dark and light, feel similar in my body.
Interesting.
It is.
So you would do this, like go to these parties, and that was how they were utilizing you mostly for like, and
That
what's
was one thing. Is
yeah.
for the occult is one thing, but like I said, it's certain specific families, and they usually get this done through. They have an attorney that sets this all up. It's not unknown to people, you know.
Uh-huh.
They have so, and it can be pretty pricey. So because sometimes they keep you for a weekend. I don't remember staying longer than like a week or two at these people's places because it gets pricey. And that's all they want to do. Sometimes they want me to just have dinner with them. Once I go into trance, they want me to just eat, and then they want to talk to the entity and ask it questions, and the entity gets really upset when they start asking like goofy questions like, you know, is my husband cheating on me? And you know, they do that. I remember they do that kind of thing. They start asking questions like he's a psychic. They're trying to treat him like a psychic, and an ancient deity, like these are lower gods that we're talking about, elder gods. These lower gods, that they find that really disrespectful that somebody would put them down to a role of a psychic, that they're coming there to ask questions. They don't appreciate that at all. They get very upset.
Right. And was there a point, I mean, this was something you were programmed to do, right? So was there a point that you started breaking through the programming?
I was not necessarily, from what I know, I'm not necessarily programmed to do this because I already am one of them. I am one of them.
From your reincarnation.
Yes. So I am one of them. So I have this. So when I was chosen for this program called Project Traveler, actually, the person was Dr. Green. He had these people, these two, it was a brother and sister group, and they took me into the office, and they were doing like this weird I don't know, examination of me. It looked like, but they weren't speaking. They were just like opening my eyes and opening my mouth. And when they were done, they said that they saw the thing inside me. So they must have been intuitive or something. But what they were wrong about is they thought it was something that they could extract and like take control of, and it's not. You can't take control of me because it's whatever I am is at my cellular level. It's not something that I can erase. And now that I know what I know about it, I wouldn't want to erase it. That's not, I can't, you know, erase a part of me. That's not going to happen. It's not an attachment. And a lot of people will go that route because that's the only thing they know how to say.
Yeah.
They haven't experienced the other side. They don't know that. So I understand when people say, "Oh, it's just an attachment. You're letting it take control." No, I'm not. It is me. I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to say that. So I think that was really interesting.
Do you think they tracked you right from birth?
I don't know if I was tracked from birth. I don't have that information. I know it was because of my own father. He was the one that signed me up for this program to stay out of prison.
Oh, okay.
He was able to stay out of prison by doing this. And actually, this is a really cool story. I went to a random psychic fair, and you know, psychic fair, I don't really see those as like, I didn't think they would even be able to do anything. You know, usually it's a lot of people with cards. Not saying that that's bad, but I didn't think they would be able to catch what I can do. And so I sat at this gentleman's table, an older gentleman. I sat at his table, and, you know, I think he was I'm pretty sure he expected most women that came to the table to ask about romance. And I didn't. And I said, all I said was, "Tell me about Mars." And he was like, his eyes were like bulging out of his head. And he's like, the first thing he said was, "Congratulations for being alive." And he's like, he said he could see me being just battered and bloody and bruised and having ribs broke. He could see it in his mind, and he was just like, he said, "Is this real?" And I said, "Yes, that's real." And he said that he thinks that, from what he could say in his mind, that I have 5 years, and then they're gonna try to rewipe everything I have, all the memories I have. And he said, "You're still under contract right now." And this is somebody that would never know anything about this stuff. It was just a random person. And he's like, "You're under contract still. They're going to wipe everything from you in 5 years." And he said, like, after that, he was just like, "Thank you for sitting down. I've never experienced anything like that." He was like, "That was the most fascinating thing I've ever seen." So it was really strange to see somebody that would never know anything and just random and just pick it up and catch it and catch the extent of what he could see in his mind as just like terror and torture, and he felt it. I could see in his face that he saw something that he had never seen before from somebody that just sitting, you know, just a girl sitting at his table.
That's fascinating.
So I have to get all these books written before 5 years. Not saying that I believe it'll happen, but just in case.
Just in case, yeah. Do you remember why you were reincarnated in a human body from being a djinn?
Because I chose it.
Oh, you wanted
Because
to.
I chose it because I've been to the in-between place, which is what I call it. I've chose it. And I went there with my guide, who I call Zeldor. And he literally said, you can go anywhere. Where do you want to go? You want to go forward? You want to go backward? Because even in this life, if I die now, I can choose to go backwards again or go forwards. There's no time constraint. So I can go back thousands of years and be something then, or I can go forward far in the future. There's no time. I could pick
Right.
anything. So I chose that. I've chosen plenty of lives. You know, there was a lot of different dark lives. I chose a lot of dark paths because maybe, you know, at that time that darkness set well in me, and I continue to take a few dark paths. But I've also taken some light paths too. So that duality, I really feel comfortable with that duality inside myself, and that's something that I would love to like discuss more with people. And I'm gonna discuss it in my book, like that duality that a lot of people are kind of a little bit afraid of, to see that there's a balance. It's not just about the light. You'll never see, you have to see, if you don't see the dark, you won't see how far the light can expand.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and we come out of the dark, so we come from the dark, actually, you know? We come from that space before anything was created into light creation. So you can't deny it's a duality creation, because the mind of God wants to experience itself, and it's not going to be just light.
Yeah,
It's
there
got
has
to
to
be
be
both.
a negative and a positive reaction, opposing forces to create action.
Yeah.
So it's just a kind of the way, the way the infinite mind works. Unfortunately,
And
the negative has to exist with the positive.
And it's so perspective based from what I've learned from just in speaking with different aspects of myself. It was such a perspective based experience. This Jen that I was really did feel like she was helping me, because she said she took this role as a gift to other people. Because who else is going to have the balls to come in as a dark entity? Not a lot of people are going to say, yes, I choose this to be what she calls it is like, she was afraid to even show her real physical self, because it is a very knotted, gnarled type, something that nobody, she's like, when people would see, if they would see the real me, they would be disgusted. And she's like, who would choose to be, to be a disgusting thing for people to see and be reviled? People would be repulsed by you. She said it was very difficult to choose this, but she did it to help people, because there are people in this world that want to experience darkness, and they call it to themselves. And people called me all the time. It's just like when they called people, all the ancients called their gods. They call it the beckoning, and they did it all the time. They would call forth, and they would call me forth to their heart. And that's when I took over, when they said, there was so many people in that time. It was very, like I said, I remember saying this, it was a very seductive time. Like, it's so different from now. And you don't need a lot of the elder gods that we consider that to be like, we're dying, because people don't need this anymore. They don't need this experience of darkness, because you can experience it just here on earth. You could have a predator live next door to you, a victimizer living next door, because she considered herself the victimizer. And she said, you don't need us anymore, essentially, because you're having that right next door. What is the experience of the old gods when you have it right next to you? You won't even need to, because somebody next to you could hurt you. You don't need to worship and wait, and hold out for this being.
Have you ever had Jinn come and visit you in this lifetime?
Not specifically my people, but other entities. A lot of the what I consider like the more famous ones, like Bacchus, Bel, Isis, Astaroth. Or it's not even. She told me it's not pronounced Astaroth; it's pronounced Astatic. So those types, they will come, and because they can feel because I have a portal inside me, so I'm one of the portal people. So they can feel that. They can feel that. It's almost like seeing a light in a bunch of darkness, where they can jump in and be able to connect to this world. So that's how they find me easily. Anytime I get ready to change my stream of consciousness, I can already feel it, like almost them coming forth. Anybody. And it's not just them. I have like discarnates or, people that have passed away, people that, or even people, loved ones that want to come and talk and say, hey, like my dad, he comes forth all the time. My guides, different aliens, anything can come through. I've even talked to a horse before.
That's a nice experience.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Very important message from the horse.
Oh,
What did it? What I mean, like, what do you? What I was going to say is, why do you think, Olivia, that you're getting your memories back? Do you feel like there's a benevolent side? And I guess Nate and Lauda, you guys could ask this too, like, because it seems like a lot of people are getting their memories back now. I don't think that's by an accident. I mean, do you think that's just like the technology messed up that bad, or do you think there's like a side actually working to the benefit of humanity, or do you think we're all there is, and and this is all happening by accident?
No, every there's so many different races that say they're rooting for us, they're watching, they're waiting, they're just watching and waiting. Like Arcturians say that. I mean, when I talked to Jesus and Lucifer at the same time, they both said that. They both were holding hands and they said, we're watching you, we're rooting for you, we can see everything here, you keep going, you're doing great work. They want people, they said, they were holding hands, they said, can't you see what we're doing here? That's what you guys need to do. If we can push past what people think we are, then why can't you humans on Earth do this? So I think they're very getting kind of frustrated, but at the same time they can see the big change coming, and that's what they always say, that they can see change coming.
Yeah, as for me, in regard to all that, I think a lot of us are going to wake up anyway, and what they do for the ones that are more of an issue for them to control is they will give us memories. So they will pacify us and wake us up in a controlled manner. So what they did with me is I had a memory of a soul transference. Is the oldest memory that I have. And they distorted it at first. There was squares and rectangles over the faces where I couldn't see people, sometimes shading. There was a white light in the room. I couldn't make it out. Under hypnosis, I saw the room completely clear. And then later, actually before the hypnosis, years before that, I had flashbacks of it, to where each of the flashbacks, I saw this room at White Sands, which was a soul transference lab, a little clearer. And I realized that it wasn't a heavenly realm. Then over the course of my life, instead of me going through and remembering abductions in my lab memories, they took the spiritual point or that particular strategy with the IBIS program, and then I was put into the occult. And then all hell just started to break loose in my life from that point, because they did everything under a theological facade. And that's one of the reasons why, when I went public, a lot of the people in this community weren't ready for somebody to start talking like that, because I was pretty much pushed out of a lot of the mainstream stuff because of it. And technically I wasn't really prepared for it, because I didn't realize completely what was going on with me, but that was the situation. And so my awakening has been skewed substantially, which is why they were still using these deceptions against me just not too long ago. And then when I finally figured it out, that's when the facade came down. And of course, the military threatened me for the second time. So now I'm not even going to go by any of that. I'm just going to strictly look at this from a physical perspective, that I'm a military MyLab victim and a mind control program, as well as things that have to do with the soul and everything else. So that's the situation I'm in. So yes, they do make us remember, but it doesn't mean that we're going to remember it accurately, or we're going to be able to do something with those memories, because they've got an entire itinerary of hell for us to engage as soon as we start waking up. Because if they can't suppress our memories, they have to co-opt them. And a lot of times they'll put people through a repetitive cycle of trauma recovery, which keeps them just stuck in a rut. And that's another strategy that they use for people. For me, it was they messed with my sexual orientation. I mean, this is a testosterone shot that I got to take today, because they shut down I can't even make testosterone anymore. So that was one of the other things they did, including amplifying my sex drive and then trying to get me into self-destructive fetishes and other types of things. They've made a wreck of my life and ruined my marriage, and a lot of, friendships and relationships, professional opportunities have been lost. The social safety net was never available to me. So they've punished me to the point where I'm lucky to be alive, but then again, I'm not, because who would want to live like this? So that's what they did to me. And it's pretty much the reason I'm going public anyway, because I think people need to know about this, and they need to know about the other side of it, which is the occult new age side of it as well, because that's used against us. You either wake up as a MyLab and the the SSP and as a super soldier, or you wake up in the occult in this situation and then have to fight your way to the other side. And that's what I had to do. So that was the answer to your question. That's how I know what my alters are, because they started out as voices in my head that portrayed my higher self. And so in other words, I think that the higher self is actually us under a controlled state of consciousness. And these alters can pretend to be the higher self or an extraterrestrial coming through, to give us advice. And ultimately, I had a little bit of both, including AI. But in the end, I figured out that the multiple voices in my head were actually the alters being used by the programs. And as I woke up to that, they engaged me in a different way and said, we want to get out of this. So that's where I'm at with this, if that answers everyone's questions.
Yeah. Lauda, what do you want to talk about your experience, like with your memories and like in your waking up, and like, do you feel like you were you were like, and your whole experience, do you feel like you were like you you came into your memories on your own?
Well, okay, so yes, I came in under a type of protection and an anomaly that was created to get me in here with my memories. So, but I was sold into the projects when I was very young, but I was already on the radar after I was born. So I already had military doctors coming to the hospital, examining me and things as a baby. So the problem that they had with me was that it was very difficult to keep me drugged, and it was very difficult to keep me from remembering. So a lot of the instances I would be waking up when I shouldn't have been waking up, then they would have to drug me more, and they couldn't understand, my God, like how many drugs can I give this person? She keeps waking up. But then I would retain the memory. I learned how to corrupt the connection with the clones so that when they kept replacing my clone to take me, they couldn't do a download of whatever the clone experienced for the time that I was missing. So I learned how to do things like that, which they, I mean, they really had a hard time with me. So a lot of the time they would replace me with a clone to take me. Those were long durations that they would take me, right? I got really good at corrupting the connection with the clones so that they couldn't do any transfer, downloading, or anything. And that wasn't possible. So I would retain that I was missing and gone for 2 months because I was in the projects. I was in an underground facility most of the time, or I was on artifact extraction and things like that. And I retain the memory that no, I haven't been here for 2 months. You know, you had a clone here, not me. So it was always a fight for them to try and find a way to keep me from waking up and to keep me from remembering. And I'm not saying they weren't successful, partially because I think they were successful partially, but there's something in me that kept fighting it. And so that's how I retained a lot of memory from the things that they were doing to me. And like some things I don't understand the technology they have. I don't understand some of the things I see. I can only try and rationalize it, right? Like there was one time I was taken because it was a point of interest. They were having a bunch of people coming and looking inside my head because of something that's very unique. And I remember being taken in and with some kind of weird technology, they split me completely open. And I have full memory of this. Like, so, you know, think of you being cut in half and split open. And you've got all these people like in some kind of amphitheater coming in and looking in, and they're all discussing, like, look at that, isn't that there, you know, we haven't seen anything like this before. We don't, you know, we're trying to figure out, and you're just like in the in this kind of like a dental type chair, not able to move. You're fully aware, fully conscious, and your whole head and face is split in half. Then they were finished, and they used that I don't know, whatever technology it was, and it just whoop back like as if nothing happened. And it was complete. So, you know, there's just things that I see that I don't understand necessarily, but yeah, there's just a lot of memory. But I mean, in my experience, I can say that they've actually stepped in to do a huge amount of work around protecting me. Like if I've ever had something to do in a hospital, you know, I've had experiences where I was taken and they had, I don't know, these beings had put something inside and it kind of imploded and everything was crushed, but there was no external damage. So when I came back here, 3D, I was in agony and I couldn't explain it because there's no bruising, but it was just agony. I had to go into emergency. And when they took scans, they were all freaking out because it was a medical X file. They couldn't understand what happened because everything was crushed, literally crushed. And I had to go for an emergency surgery of reconstruction, which took 14.5 hours for them to reconstruct me, but there was no explanation. The only thing that they said to me was, this is impossible because this would require technology that would be internal. And so, you know, there's been things like that, but then the military steps in and always makes sure I'm fine, I'm good, I'm well taken care of. They give me the best doctor, the best this. Sometimes they'll just come in when I'm in there, and then after the fact, the nurses will say, that's really weird because he's never come here before. Like, that's really interesting. And, you know, so I keep hearing things like that. So I have a lot of protection from them, which, you know, is very interesting, but I have had some utterly extreme things that have happened also that required surgery to correct me from the horrifying things they did.
Yeah, I've had similar stuff to that, but it was mostly I had help with legal issues that were, you know, or as it was like as an arrest was taking place or getting ready to, it stopped in its tracks.
Yeah.
I've been able to keep a clean criminal record, I mean, I have no, you know, I don't have any tickets yet. I've had them, but they take them off. I've had that happen before, but they've made me sick. And then I would have to seek, you know, medical help, and they would punish me with the illnesses. So I didn't get the medical help like you're talking about, but they actually did the opposite. They injured me and then made it hard to get help. But then eventually I would actually get help, but it was all done in a way to punish and then sustain. And then, you know, my living situation as a child, my mother was a 17-year-old runaway. My father, I believe, was in the MyLab programs. That's just intuitively, I feel that he only lived to be about 52. I never had any interaction with him except for when I was really young, but he was gone before I was a year old. And my mom's mom is where I wound up. She's the one who raised me. And towards the end of her life, when she hit around, I think she got around 71, she had a major heart attack. And we both had psychic experiences with that. They fixed her. She had several miraculous recoveries. So what they did is they hijacked her essentially. And I think maybe she was here as punishment from another world because there was ET involvement with her and they were making me aware of it. And every time she would have a major health issue, they would bring her back to the point where the hospital wanted to put her in a study for miracle patients because she had 60% tissue damage in her heart from myocardial infarction. And they thought she was done. And we had that discussion. It's best to pull the plug if she has another cardiac event. We had it in the stairwell of the University of Maryland Hospital at, you know, the cardiac ward. It was me, my mother, my wife, and I think it was just the heart doctor. And And she said, miracles sometimes happen, so keep your faith up. Well, the next day she came out of the coma, and I walked into that room after being up for days and not being able to sleep. I could barely get from the parking garage, which was about 2 blocks or so from the main hospital entrance, because I was so exhausted and sick and emotionally drained. When I went into that room where she was, because they're only allowing 2 people at a time, I stepped a foot into the doorway and I immediately felt better. And I knew they were healing her. I didn't know who they were, but I could see them out of my side view. I could see them standing around the bed. I saw 2 of them actually, because I rode in the ambulance with her when she went to the University of Maryland. This is after a massive heart attack that was overlooked at a hospital. They didn't even check her cardiac enzymes. They said she had a potassium deficiency and sent her home. The woman turned blue at a 4th of July cookout. It was a pig roast that a friend of mine was having. She turned blue at the picnic table and had to be taken to the hospital right out of there. And that's where it started. So 1 foot in the door, I felt completely better. I told everybody that she was going to be better. I got mocked by my sister-in-law, who's, the church lady. She said that only Satan does things like that. God is angry at the world, because her preacher told her that. And I'm under the influence of Satan. Right. And then a couple hours later, all this happens. Ironically, years later, my brother and his wife, his ex-wife now, have no recollection of that exchange that we had. I find that to be unusual, but not that unusual, because these things are often forgotten by people who edit their memories because of stress and personality issues and problems. And that was kind of what was going on with them. But it may have also been something else. But I know what I experienced, and I saw it more than once. And when I started getting the ET contact that I thought it was really from the base. They were telling me when, she's not going to die, she's going to be okay. So when the final heart attack came, she lived through it, and she lived years on hospice, and it was crazy. And I had to take care of her kind of as a shut-in. So we talked about this stuff in between the heart attacks. And that last day that I left the hospital before she came home from the last major heart attack, she said to me, I said, I need to talk to her. I told my mother, to step outside because she wanted to leave. I said, I just need to say goodbye to her. And I could barely get the words out because I was so upset. And I just wanted to let her know that I loved her, and that I was still going to take care of her. I mean, I was the one who was there that stuffed the wound in her leg. And then, throughout the first heart attack, she had this huge wound that went down in her thigh that I had to keep, flushing out, and I had to keep it clean until it finally healed. So I was there the whole time. But she said to me, she looked at me, and she could barely talk. And all she would say for the first few days is, I love you, and just hi and stuff like that. But she said, they finally talked to me. And I said, well, what did they say? And she said, well, the one I talk about sitting when I'm, sleeping, I wake up and I feel like somebody's sitting on the bed. And I said, yeah. And he said that we're going to make you well for a little while, and then you're going to go home. And sure enough, I mean, I had experiences when she was on hospice throughout her last few months and her last few weeks. I heard somebody stomping through the house. I thought it was my son, and I felt movement go past the room. And I was in there, getting dressed, and I thought he was home early. And I went and I looked, and nobody was there. She was still in her room in her hospital bed, and nobody else was in the house. So I had a lot of experiences like that, but I think that they hijacked her and used her to keep me going, because at the time they were punishing me, and I could have been homeless over that, my wife and I, because I was too sick to work. I was having spine surgeries, and that's what I went through. So it affected other people in my life. And they also made me feel guilty about that. They made me feel guilty because they wanted me to be sad for her, that she should have went home, and it was because of me that she had to stay and suffer for another 19, actually 20 years, that she lived like that from age 71 to about 91, when she finally went home. And they used that against me, and to preserve me in order to go through all the crap that I've been put through. That's something I haven't really talked about much. So anyway, that's what I had to say about that. I really don't want to go much further into it because it hurts.
I think the one aspect which is probably the most difficult, besides having a lot of bad experiences that you spend years trying to figure out with very little answers. It's not like we can dial up you know, MK Ultra Express or something, or like Black
Yeah.
Projects Central. Is like the area of relationships, right? Because how do you normalize what is our lives and our experiences with a relationship that's normal, where a person has no idea whatsoever? It's just, it's like putting two aliens together, right?
Right.
So, and then most of the time too, right, they send you agents and sentinels and handlers, and you know, they're not like divinely they're not divine encounters, right? These are like handled encounters, handled lifestyles. So yeah, I mean, that aspect is really difficult. I mean, you can't, you know, you can never do normal. I can never do normal.
No, and they use those things against us, Lauda, as you know. I mean,
Oh,
we can't talk to regular people about these things. They think we're mentally ill. You know, I've never seen anybody with such a mental illness like we're supposed to have talk in this way and be organized and help each other and have conferences and podcasts. There's people out there who suffer from mental illness aren't going to the schizophrenic sufferers conference or the psychotic sufferers conference. There's no conference for, well, there could be some people going to conferences for substance abuse and things like that, but it's not like that. Nobody's going to Florida, you know, to stay at a resort to talk about how they hear voices and then celebrate it. We're not necessarily celebrating it. We're trying to take care of each other, really, is what we're doing, and expose this. But you know,
I think,
so
well, I mean, I think that would be brutal. I can say the only time I ever heard like voices was when they put an implant in my teeth and they screwed up and I could hear everything. Like it was just literally like I had a walkie-talkie.
yeah.
That was like, that was crazy. But bar that, no, besides that I'm a medium and I can communicate with the dead and they would always come to me, and you know, I'm communicating on that level. I've never had to I've never had to deal with that, but I have had people around me who were sleepers who were completely tortured with that. And, you know, I did see and witness a lot of terrible things as a result of what happened to these people. And it always seemed that they happened to come around me. They would orbit around my life. And I think that was on purpose to freak me out. And they would hear voices, right? But no, the only time that happened to me was with that implant. I think that would, you know, having, I can't even imagine. That would be terrible.
Well, I refer to it as the White Sand Psychic Radio Network. You know, so
Yeah.
in just last 2 weeks, there might have been 3 now, that I had one that was remote viewing me, and I was thinking about a problem I was going through with another person, how to handle it, and I felt somebody there, and as soon as I sensed it, I heard how clever, and then he started to proceed to tell me to go F myself and that they were going to shut me up. He was a really nasty one, and then he left. And prior to that, the day before that, I had the scary reptilian voice, but that one was a little worse than, because before it's a lot of theatrics, it's a lot of intimidation stuff, and it almost gets to the point where it's funny, and I usually laugh at it. But when they start talking about you're going to get reassigned, and they start using military terminology and things like that, and then it follows up with the remote viewer the next day, and then boom, and then Mr. Nice Guy shows up to tell me how bad off the situation is for me, and I better just cooperate if I want to just stop suffering, and they'll take care of me in return for that. They'll put me in a life that I can live with. They'll make sure that things are better for me. They'll actually give me things to do in society that I would enjoy doing. They'll put me in politics, whatever they need to do, as long as I comply. They've got big plans for me because I'm so useful. And I said, what is so important about me? Why am I so special to you and all of you? And he said, because when you do what we tell you to do, it's utter perfection. When I got a hold of one of my alters, and I said, how many copies of me have they made? Is it a lot? And they said, no, far less than most people, but you know. And I said, so I must work out well then in the programs, but I'm not used widely. And so it's more or less your alters work for a while, and then they, you know, the program breaks.
Mhm.
And
We
that's
had
why
a
you're in this
question about that,
situation.
Nate. This Rebecca Marie from the chat, she wrote about clones. She wrote, perhaps they want to understand the human spirit and our abilities to create mimic copies of it in tech form. They control tech, but they can't control a spirit. And then she wrote, maybe, question mark.
Oh, that's weird. Can you repeat that? I
She
didn't hear the
wrote,
last
perhaps they
part.
want to understand the human spirit and our abilities to create mimic copies of it in a tech form. They control tech, but they can't control a spirit, maybe. And then she wrote question mark.
Well, they can only control it to a certain degree. They use deception until you start to wake up from that, and until you wake up to the deceptions, as the amnesia wears away. You know, up until that point, they can do whatever they want with you. You'll do whatever you think is right, and that's what they're programming you to do. So I've got alters that think they're doing, you know, the greater good. You know, the one female that comes through and says, I love killing for the greater good. Well, how do you know it's the greater good if you're mind controlled? So, you know, I'm the one that can see it, and they don't seem to be able to see it. But when I start to wake up, they start waking up. And in regard to that, yeah, you can only enslave a consciousness for so long, and then it becomes like, because I mean, I always say they have the greatest work effort, because in order to make up this mountain of lies, they have to do a lot of work to keep it going. In order to get everybody to comply, they've got to fool everyone. So, you know, yeah, it's hard to do that, but the problem is this isn't something that they're new at. You know, I'd say the U.S. military is new at it. I mean, they have only been doing it since the 40s, it appears, but the ETs have been doing this for billions and trillions of years, and who knows how long. And it's been going on pretty much forever. There's always going to be a superior group taking advantage of an inferior one because of technology, resources, whatever it happens to be. And unfortunately, that's the horrible reality that we live in. And it's as above, so below. It really rings true there, because what we're seeing on this planet with the slavery and the indifference to each other, the hatreds, the prejudices, the inequality is all happening out there at the same time, just on a bigger scale. We're just a reflection of it. And we're in a quantum quarantine, and they're making this whole thing. This is like the Truman Show combined with the Wizard of Oz, combined with the Clockwork Orange and a bunch of other stuff. It's not fair. It's the greatest human rights violation you could possibly imagine. And it needs to stop.
13th floor and Dark City as well included in that list.
Yeah, and M. Night Shyamalan's The Village is like the foundation of it all, combined with the Wizard of Oz, because it's like we're in a controlled experiment, and outside of it, everybody's looking at it and they know what it is but us. Much like the Truman Show, but on more of like a community. Well, it's a global scale.
Not to change the subject, but did you guys mention movies? I have that guy that comes on my show. His name is Robert Sullivan. He's a Freemason. And he talks about that, like during the turn of the century, there were a lot of like Gnostic themed movies, like The Matrix, The Truman Show, Donnie Darko, some of the other ones you guys were naming. They're all like Gnostically themed, and they're at the like turn of the century. They're all like around 98, 99. You know, I wonder why that was. It's weird how like things can like foresee like the future or something like that. You know what I'm trying to say? I don't
Well,
know.
I think it's social engineering. I had it when I was under the whole contactee delusion, and they were trying to create a situation where I would do a podcast and then they would screw it up and I'd stop, is what it seemed like they were trying to do. I had a download, and they showed me how they influenced the Wizard of Oz movie. I mean, everybody involved was psychically influenced, and it has occult themes in it. And that's not a coincidence. It's on purpose. And I believe, and I've heard from others too, that this is used in the MK Ultra and all the other stuff that came after that, the mind control programs. So the Wizard of Oz is used for that. And then you have the other thing they showed me was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And what they told me is that was the first time that we injected into popular culture the idea that contactees and ETs had a telepathic connection. That's when it was popularized. It may have been out there before, but that's when really the public took notice of it, and it had an impactful effect on the world population, just like the Wizard of Oz had an impactful effect, but more of an esoteric, subconscious way. And what was interesting is when I was a kid, I was afraid of the seagull, which was this white face thing with big black eyes that I associated with a bird, but I never really saw the seagull except for just a flash or two of like white with the eyes. And these are fragments of an abduction memory. And it was interesting when I finally did see the seagull in a nightmare. It was from the Wizard of Oz. I think it's a Schnauzer dog that they use for the Wizard of Oz, but I actually saw that dog, and that was the seagull, and was literally it was standing in my room on it looked like a circular platform that was kind of rotating like it was on stage, and it had a spotlight above it. And it's like, this is the seagull. And I was scared to death of this dog from the Wizard of Oz, but that wasn't the seagull. I never actually saw that. So they were throwing something in that I didn't figure out until much later, that this was military mind control and I was being abducted. And, I even had the Exorcist experience. One night, something came into the room. I felt the presence that I always recognized that was there, that I was scared to death of. And my bed started shaking. In my mind, well, actually, in my recollection, I was under the sheets for about an hour, covered in sweat. My pajamas were wringing wet. And then the feeling went away, and I looked around the room, and then I went to sleep. I guarantee you, if I went through hypnosis, if I was able to get that memory, I was probably taken. Excellent chance of it. There's plenty of things that happen like that. And I was scared to sleep in my room. I wanted to sleep with the adults. I didn't want to go in there after dark. It was frightening. I felt the presence all through my life. And after a while, I got used to it. And they used to come into my room when I was doing homework as a kid, and they'd make the frame of the entrance door to my room, they'd make it crack. It would be a loud crack. And then sometimes my ears would ring, or I would hear, it almost felt like a change in the air pressure. Like I was on a plane and my ears were popping, but not quite, because it was very subtle and not really pressure oriented in my ears, but there was that perception of a change in the room. And I'd feel movement around me, and they would circle me, and then they would leave. And it would happen almost every day, usually when I was doing my homework. Sometimes I'd feel it when I had music on. I would turn the music off or just leave it on, but I could still sense it with it, with the music on. And I got to the point where it was a comforting thing. I thought maybe angels were watching over me or something else. But throughout my life, whenever I got close to religion, I'd always get a voice in my head a lot would say, that's not for you. Until one point, they got me into the fundamentalist stuff for a little bit, the end time stuff. And then I kind of worked my way out of that into spiritual atheism, which was just no theology, because I saw through a lot of that. And what was left was the spiritual experiences I was having. And I couldn't abandon the possibility that there was a God, but at the same time, I knew there was a soul. That was for sure. I had a memory of a past existence and that soul transference memory. So I knew I was different. I just didn't know why everybody else didn't have these memories. I wanted to know why others weren't psychic, even from a young child. And, I remember being in the bathtub, probably around 4 or 5 years of age, and contemplating the ancient alien concept, because I saw a cartoon where a stone rocket ship landed and an ancient alien guy stepped out. It looked like he was Mayan or something. It was in a cartoon. So this became like part of my analysis of my reality. And it's not normal for a 4 or 5, 6-year-old, as I'm playing with sharks in like a tugboat and in a tub, and I'm literally thinking about this stuff. And I sort of came full circle with all that, because what I recognized back then was actually what's really happening right now. The angels that people perceive are physical and non-physical. And I had that concept back then. It's just, I was really focused on all of these topics ever since I was a child, because they're not only making me focused on them, but my soul, my consciousness was pushing through. My authentic self was pushing through and trying to fight through this. And I think, we've got versions of ourself that aren't hijacked. They're on different timelines. And, from what I've experienced with the multidimensional mind effect, which is what you experience outside the simulation itself, is that you are in connection with all aspects of yourself at all times. Here, it's very, very compartmentalized. You're locked into the five senses. You're locked into who you are here. And for us, a lot of it, I think, when we start getting these helpful insights in our life and our intuition works against the programs, I think that that's aspects of us or versions of ourselves that are on other timelines that are fully aware of what's happening here and are trying to get our attention and are trying to give us that intuitive advice to break out of it, because we're much bigger than we think we are. And we're much broader of a being than we think we are. We're much more powerful than we think we are. And they want to keep us contained in a box. So that's what I've learned. And that's just been the last few months that I've been able to figure this out. And, you know, you can't sit and listen to somebody tell you these things and really get it. You have to go through the process of it. So, you know, for that reason, never judge anybody that's further along than you or, you know, further behind than you, because it's a learning experience. We're all moving forward with this, and that's why we need to stick together. So the people that are trapped in new age belief systems or organized religion but are having these experiences, or just anybody in general, we have to look at them with compassion and understanding that they need a little leg up. But we have to also be careful that we're not used as you know, we're not used as handlers, because that's another thing they do. People with the best intentions can be used as handlers and not know it. And they can do damage to people and do damage to their self. You've got the love bite stuff. That's another thing. I've had so many love bites. I've had 3 while I've been married. That's enough love bites to lose a limb. It's one of the most painful things you could possibly deal with. It rips you apart and it changes you permanently, and you never really get over it, because it's always tied to something and someone that someplace else at some other time or wherever that is incredibly meaningful to you, and they're exploiting that love because they've taken the memory away and now they're using it in a weaponized way to rip your world apart and severely damage you. And it's something that, you know, if as we move forward as a community, we need to have more communities where we work together and we look out for each other. And it's a risk when you get us together, because that's when these things happen. It's one of the ways that they're shutting this community down. The other way is they turn people into narcissists, and they give people personality disorders. And what happens then is then they use these people as ticking time bombs. The sicker you are mentally, the more of a weapon you are in this community that they can use you. I mean, they will use you that way. And that's where the shadow work, as I understand, comes in, because, you know, I wondered what that was, but I didn't realize that I've been doing it my whole life since I was a kid. Really, every interaction I've ever had, and this has a lot to do with because they gave me a speech impairment. Every interaction I had, I analyzed it and I looked at it and I said, how can I improve that, you know, future interactions? How could I have made the one I just had more fruitful, more supportive? I mean, I just looked at it from that perspective. How could I improve everything that I do? And I worked on the issues that they gave me, because throughout my childhood, I exhibited mental health issues that were from my alters. I mean, and I had to deal with them. Another thing that's really painful to me is because they did this stuff with the sex drive and the sexual orientation, and then programming me when I was literally 7 years old. I had urges to engage in sexual fetish activity that you would see on some of the worst porn sites on the internet. I never was exposed to that. I was never sexually molested. I never had any of those things happen to me as a child. I had a pretty good environment despite what happened to me. I was pretty well taken care of. There was a lot of emotional issues, never anything physical, never anything sexual, yet those concepts are being fed into my mind. And it came from the programs, and I've had to deal with that. I've had to deal with it by myself, and I can't talk to people about it. I can't talk to my spouse about it. I can't talk, and I'm definitely not going to go to a psychiatrist and talk about it, because they're not equipped for this. They're going to look at this as just a mental illness. This is schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever you want to call it. You know, I don't have mood swings, but they're going to say I'm suffering from delusions, you know. And I have been able to use what I thought was my higher self, was an alter, to actually go back a course of my life and look and see where they've done things to me. So I could tell, like, any targeted individual will have this problem. They'll differ. Well, they start to disassociate with reality because the targeting is so broad that it also causes an overflow of problems into normal human interactions. That so you can't tell when they're doing something to you and when they're not. So I was able to go through a lot of things that I could remember and pinpoint where they were active and where they weren't, and how it affected me and how it affected others. And I've done that for the last couple of years. And even though it was under false pretenses. So yes, she's absolutely right when she says, and this is Olivia, that the alters do help you as well as work against you because they're forced to. So I've had help despite not having help. So it's been a mixed bag. But I would say the thing that helps me most is actually going public like this and meeting other people and just talking about it. I think it's the only thing that we really have. And I think that's why we need to keep doing it. And we can't let them stop us. I said something last night, and what you brought up, Rob, in your last interview of the night yesterday was we need something called Project Unity. I don't know if that's taken. I think, we need, if it isn't, we need to use that, and we need to figure out a way to use it effectively so we don't open up a problem for ourselves. If we created a community where all of us, instead of everybody else coming in and just making it a normal form. I think the people that suffer from these programs need a community and a place to go. Project Unity would be a great way to do that, provided it's not trademarked or, copyrighted in some way, however that works. But I think we need to do more, but I think we need to be careful, very, very careful, especially now because they're targeting everybody. And we know the way they do it. What we need to do is get out and talk more about how they target us and get all of this stuff out there. That's why Evie Lorgan and myself, we get along so well because we're doing that. When you talk about how people are targeted, and you get into this love bite issues, and you're open with it, and you use yourself as the example because it happened to you. It's healing for you, but it helps others. Anyway, that's my piece.
I agree 100%. I've been through the love bite too. It's a horrible experience. It really is. It really is. And I agree with you on the unity thing too. If we all could unite, and you see like there's like the, I don't know if it's the government or if it's entities, but they have control over some people in the community right now because some people are, I don't even know, I want to say who, I'm just saying it seems like it because some people are acting really strange, and I feel bad because I like a lot of them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I don't know how to attack. I don't know how to attack something that we can't see. Like it's like we're fighting an enemy that we can't see.
We got to show the other victims love first and foremost, if we can, if they'll accept it without hurting us in return. That's something we need to do. We need to be understanding about it. When people fall, we need to pick them back up. If they want help, they have to want help. And we have to be able to help them. We have to help ourselves first. People who go out and try to help each other in this community who haven't done the work are asking for problems because they'll be used in such a way that other people get hurt too. And that's often the case. You got to have your shit in check.
And betrayal is a big theme in the community too.
Yes.
From our programming. And I think a lot of people, because of our programming and how so many of us have learned to dissociate, we've become almost fearful of emotional pain. None of us want to experience that pain. But let me tell you, I think when I let myself experience emotional pain is where some of the most of my freedom came from in my own experience, is being able just to instead of dissociating, like I did that for so many years. I would just completely dissociate and not even let any type of emotion come into my body. But now when I let myself experience that, any type of betrayal and emotional pain has led me to a new experience of what, being a human really is.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. You have to let your authentic self out, and you have to be. And what I found is with me is they've kept me in a box in a sense because they don't allow me to remember a lot. And the key to that, which I know now, is connecting with the alters and trying to heal that way. But they're going to have control over that to a certain extent. So you have to fight. You have to fight within that system of control to get these memories back, and then you have to work on those issues from those memories. And anyway, yeah, I actually lost my train of thought. I'm actually getting emotional and kind of like just sort of, I don't know, a little bit thrown off here, but so I just need to take a moment to think.
I was gonna say that from one of my sessions I've done, I know that some of these private military companies are trying to reach out to former assets, because from what they've told me is that the newer assets that they're creating are not living up to what they thought, they considered some of us older assets, maybe 40s and 50-year-olds. The newer assets aren't living up to that kind of like standard. So where they're looking to recruit some of the former assets to do work for them, and they're readily offering contracts, different military groups, and they're terrible contracts, but it's just they keep saying they're going to pay you if you come help them figure out how to train these assets properly the way we were, because they're no longer using trauma-based mind control. They're using a lot of chemicals, and they think that it does produce the same result, but the entirety of who the person is not the same. They don't have the same experience that we did. So much fear was built up in our altars too, and we were programmed to never defy the authority of whoever held the contract over us. We programmed to do that. None of us hardly ever defied authority. Even when I was working in human resources on Mars, I hardly ever had anybody in my office that was willing to go against the status quo, because that was something that they were always searching for us, to see that one person that might be a rebel and to make sure that that was squashed in time. So that's a theme that's within that military. Even on Mars, when I worked for MDF, they wanted to make sure that nobody was going against the status quo that they had set for their. So some of these assets are going to be contacted in different ways. Sometimes you might not even know that they're contacting you. I know that recently I've experienced where they're letting different code words seep into your subconscious. You'll wake up in the middle of the night and you'll have a phrase in your mind that you have no idea why it's in your mind. And if you have that happen, write it down. That way you can figure out later what it means. Because sometimes I'll go back and go into a trance and try to figure out what the code means, and then I can find out what they're trying to do. So that gives you a little bit power over it if you can try to just write it down and not just dismiss it all the time, because it'll be something very strange that'll come into your mind. You might not know that it's an actual code.
Yeah, that's how I figured out Project Ibis. I was laying in bed one morning. It was like 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking about that cult that I was in. I'm like, where did that come from? What program was that in? And I just heard, it was what I thought was my higher self, but it was an altar, and it said Project Ibis. And I immediately looked up I looked it up on my phone, and I'm looking at it, and I'm finding James Casbolt and Project Camelot stuff, and I'm not seeing at that point what I was looking for. And then I'm just okay, this is the super soldier stuff. But that's how that kind of came about. And then, other terms came to me, such as Nest Keeper, for example, which is an assassin term. And I was laying in bed that time too. And it was like, I think morning, it was actually morning. And I'm sitting there actually, laying there, and I hear Nest Keeper, that's what you are. I'm like, Nest Keeper. So I had to find people in the community who knew what that was, because when I looked it up, there was nothing but, stuff on sparrows and wildlife and things, anything. But I guess Nest Keeper means maintaining the roost, keeping the continuity of the program.
And even I know the code. I know this code is go find your father. It means get back to home base. And it means time for you to you hit your mark. You got to get back. Because when we're doing missions, all of it is such in time constraints. Even when they're training us, they had a specific VR programming that they did just to see how quick you could clear a room. They called that Project Death Strike. And they were going in very small increments to, it was like 34 seconds, 2 minutes, 10 minutes tops, to see how quickly you could complete something. So they're putting these assessments in everybody's files and making sure they know exactly how quick you can be. So when they're saying go find your father, that means get back to your mark as soon as possible, not a half hour, not an hour later. It means like 10 minutes. Like you got to be there ASAP. So I've been learning a lot more codes. Like when it comes to me, I'll try to make sure I write it down and then try to find out what they mean. because I think they're important. Because I think some people might notice or remember some of them when you start thinking about it, because it just will be everyday codes.
And for those out there wondering why we don't have a government in any country that represents the people, it's because they can do this using us. And they can have other tech that they use to control people. So if they want to take somebody out, and they can kill somebody and replace them with a clone. Now this sounds crazy to the people on the outside, but it's what's going on. And literally, I actually saw this. I saw a clip. It was a discussion with Roseanne, and it was about that comedian that went to Africa, Chappelle, who actually fled Hollywood. And when he came back, they were talking about, we didn't think it was him. And they were like talking like in such a way, like they all knew that people were being replaced. So, I mean, and Arkeem Rog talks about this stuff too. They've got Hollywood under their control, and we can all see that. That's why they all work together. That's why they all follow the same narratives, but they're doing the same thing. They've got our entire society pretty much like a Truman Show. It's pretty much, it's engineered, it's rigged. Our perceptions are skewed. Everything that we look at, everything we consume information wise is completely programmed. And they need all these people. They need millions of assets out there. And most people don't even know they're being used for these programs. It's the strong ones that break the programming that start waking up. And for them, they have a plan for that. You know, I think everybody talking right now is the ones that they can't completely control properly, while the others stay completely asleep. So they've got all of these deceptions for us to fall into. And for those that they can't shut up, then they'll just let us talk, but they'll make our lives miserable as we do it. And that's what they told me. I mean, I could see it. I could see the patterns, but when they tell you that we let some people talk, and you aren't one of them, is what I've been told. You know, I was supposed to be lost in the sauce of, Satanism and the occult and you name it, the new age. So that was a way of like shutting me down, which didn't work.
Yeah, well, we better. Does anybody have any final thoughts? Because I know it. Like, I have another podcast in a couple hours. Lauda has another one, or she has a session, I think, and everybody has something to do. Does anybody have any like good closing thoughts for the audience, or anything they want to add? Olivia, do you want to go first, or anything like that?
I'm just working on my second book. Should have that out within the next couple months. So it should be really cool. The theme is duality.
Oh, we can do another interview. We can do like a one-on-one if you want when you come out with your book. I'll have you
sure.
on. That'd be great. And thank you and Lauda, do you have any final words?
I was just going to say the other thing about what makes this tricky, especially when you're deprogramming, is that often they'll program you with different languages. And some of the projects they have you in are under these different languages. So they're not always in English.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that one. Yeah, that's interesting. That's a new layer to this.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, so this is like, a deep rabbit hole. You just
everybody's got a piece of the puzzle. That's a new one. Oh, Rob, we're going to this conference. Hopefully I can come up with the cash. It should be able to. So would you like to talk about that? Because I think really, I think, the answer to this is, to love each other and to do everything within that, in that love, to make this, to actually shut this down and help each other. I don't know if we could shut it down, we could certainly help each other. So it's important that we have a sense of community. And so why don't you talk about the conference, Rob, a little bit? Because
it's like I've been promoting it a lot. I mean, I've had a lot of, like, I've had 90% of the people on, that are at the conference on my show, and we're gonna have like Miles Johnson, Carrie Cassidy, I'm trying to think, my friend Maya,
from the Far Side, Tony Rodriguez.
Tony Rodriguez, Chris O'Connor. Did I say Miles Jones? I mean,
you said Miles.
Arkeem Ra, Penny Bradley. It's a real all-star lineup, and the website is real easy. It's fulldisclosuremovement.org, and it's not .com, it's .org. Fulldisclosuremovement.org, and it's Tampa, Florida, and it's going to be awesome. You know, I'm really looking forward to it. I'll be doing some of the live stream stuff, and yeah, it's going to be it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited about it. You know, I think it'll be I think it's well needed. You know, I think it really is well
Absolutely.
needed.
And I think it's being done right for once. I think, when I got into this community, there was a lot of gatekeepers. People had prejudice against people coming up with new information. And there was a lot of shills out there that are program assets that, unbeknownst to them, they are. And they were ruling the roost. And you couldn't get a word in edgewise if you weren't just following the script. And thank God that's starting to change. And I'm thankful that I was able to be part of it along with you, Rob, and others that came together and started to come forward with things. And you actually created a place for people to go and congregate when everyone else had problems where we went before. And you've been one of the few people online that doesn't have well, you for the most part, you say you're a skeptic, but you allow everybody to speak, and that's what we needed. We don't need a gatekeeper who has a podcast. We need somebody who lets everybody speak, because then we can sort out what's the truth and what isn't. And those who try to keep people from talking are the problem. And you've done the exact opposite of that. And I can't commend you high enough for that. You
Oh,
gave me a chance to go public. It probably helped save my life. If it didn't, it definitely helped me get control. And then I think with that, I could save my soul instead, which is more important. And I think I speak for a lot of us when I say that, you've done a lot of good in this community, and we need to keep moving forward with it. And I see nothing but good things from this conference.
yeah.
I'm really looking forward to meeting all the people, that some of whom I've already met, but others I haven't. We get a chance to hang out for almost a week together, to get to know each other. And I think after this, we're going to leave with a lot of new friendships, and we're going to be able to do positive things with those friendships and help others in the process. And that's the bottom line here. It's a sense of community. We're going to do what they don't want us to do. They don't want love in this community. They want people to appreciate one another. They want chaos. They want paranoia. They want anger. They want people to be envious of each other. They want every negative thing that they've tried to put into us with the voice, the skull crap, and everything else that they've tried to do. And we're going to turn this around. And we're going to take this Project Oblivion and we're going to blow it to oblivion. We're going to make it Project Unity, whether it's called that or not. We're just going to come together and we're going to push back. And we're not going to let them do this to us.
Yeah, I agree. Well, with that said, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you, Nate? And then we'll give everybody a chance to tell their websites and everything. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Planetary Consciousness Project, or the Typical Skeptic podcast, Telegram groups, and you can find me there. I'm a moderator in Rob's, and I'm also moderate my own. Yeah, you can find me at the Hodjan contactee channel, and the spelling is in the corner of my screen. It's pretty much where I'm at right now. I don't have a much bigger footprint than that right now at the moment.
Okay, and thank you. And Lauda, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? And thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing before I do that. I want to really stress that they used our own minds to create impossible things, super soldiers, you name it, like, yeah, interstellar, outer stellar travelers. They used our minds to create this. Reality's not fixed. We have the power. That's why they used us. That's why they need us, because we have the power to create. And we can create reality we want, because reality is not fixed. So the more we understand this, the more we can actually disengage from the reality they want us to create. So I just really want to stress that that is really vital.
I like that.
And yeah, so my website, Sovereign Key, pretty much everything is Sovereign Key, Lauda Leon, like website, YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey. Yeah.
And thank you, Lauda. It's always good having you. I always enjoy having you on the show. And Olivia, do you want to tell people where they can find you or find your book or whatever?
Yeah, my book is called Gray Mouse, Sex, Space, and Mind Control. It's on Amazon.
All right. Well, thank you, Olivia, too. And thank you, everybody. I thought this was a great show. I thought this was really well needed. And I think I'm gonna try to, and for everybody watching, share this video, because YouTube's not sending out notifications. So, and Nate will put it on his channel, and Lauda will put it on her channel. I'll give them copies, and then that'll get out more. And then, and yeah, we'll do that. And also support the podcast, guys. I'll have links in the description. Appreciate it. And thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. And yeah, thanks guys. And thank you everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, Rob. It was lovely.
Thank you.
Nate, Olivia, thank you.
Thanks, Lauda.
Thanks,
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks. And thank you, Rob. Take care.
Thanks, guys.